I want to talk a little bit about legislation and reform because the fire has been rekindled over abolishing qualified immunity at the federal level. There's been some discussion in Congress, particularly Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, is looking to strike a deal with the likes of Cory Booker over qualified immunity, where they will actually try to pursue federal changes that make it possible for you to sue police departments instead of individual police officers. What is the case, Brad, because you've written a lot about this, for abolishing qualified immunity? Can you define it a little bit for people as well?
Yeah, basically qualified immunity is this legal liability shield in civil court. So it's not a criminal thing, but it's if a police officer violates your right, or it actually applies to any government official.
Civil rights, okay. Not
civil
criminal.
rights,
yeah.
Your constitutional rights. You can sue them for damages, for money in court. Except that there's this big liability shield that basically gives police officers protection and other government agents from lawsuits except in a case where there's a clearly documented precedent of exactly the same abuse in the past being held as an abuse. Now, the problem with that is that it basically means 80, 90, 70% of the time, they're blocked, even in really egregious cases. Like in Arizona, there were prison guards that tied a prisoner to a post in 100+ degree heat and taunted him with water. And because no case like that had happened in the books, they were shielded from liability. So that's the problem. The question is what we do about it. If that happened
a second time, they wouldn't be shielded?
No, they actually would have to have in the past, before qualified immunity was created by judges out of thin air in around 1970. They'd have to have a case from before then that would serve as a precedent. What I think we should do, abolishing qualified immunity is a political non-starter. It is not going to pass in this Congress. It's not going to happen. But what you could do is go back to the old qualified immunity standard before the Supreme Court created the current one out of thin air about 40, 50 years ago. Before it was, if they behave reasonably, according to what a reasonable person would think, and if they don't, if they behave recklessly, the case can proceed, right? So there's this, maybe there should be some shield for police officers. It's a difficult job, so they can't be sued every which way.
They say that, like, if we get rid of or abolish qualified immunity, that people won't want to be police officers. And I say, tough, right?
I have no sympathy.
I have no sympathy for
that.
But
we don't have to entirely abolish it. We just have to allow the cases against the bad cops to proceed. There can be a common, that's what Tim Scott's talking about, suing departments instead of officers.
But you're not suing departments, you're suing the taxpayers to actually pay out that money.
But the difference there is that it comes out of the police budget. But you have to give the police skin in the game, and by being able to sue the department instead of suing the city, it comes out of their budget, so it's progress.
But what I want to see happen, and this has been one of those alternative proposals put out there, is that we need to actually pursue bringing a free market mechanism into policing with insurance and liability for police officers. Surgeons and doctors have to have this stuff so that when they mess up, right, or they are known to be reckless, they pay higher insurance rates for their work, and hospitals are not the ones who are footing the bills for lawsuits. I actually think it's a fantastic idea, because right now, police departments, 1% of the most reckless police officers account for 5 times as much of the damage lawsuits and settlements that every department has to settle for. That makes no sense. Like, if you're having all of your police budget gobbled up by just like 1% of reckless cops, make them pay and have their insurance rates be higher.
Yeah, look, I like the idea, but I also think, and Olivia, maybe you have thoughts on this, we can't talk about this without talking about the police unions. They get bad cops restored to the job every day that ends in Y. So you could have the liability system, but when you have these corrupt unions, good luck.
Qualified immunity, I definitely think it's a shield for corrupt cops, but that is like here, and I think police unions are like up here. Like they basically act as a shield. I think they act as a shield for corrupt police officers. I 100% support abolishing police unions for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, police unions are one of those sort of big elephants in the room that I don't know how we're ever going to get around it. You're not going to get rid of public sector unions.
It's one of those things where it's like Brad said, it's like a political non-starter. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
And it's obviously the incentive to get their members to be able to do the job as they see fit, feel as less stressed as possible, not have extra costs added to their lives, such as liability insurance. Like, I'm one of those people where I sort of like want to tinker with really bad governance by making being in government a little bit more profitable for people. I say this about like Congress people. Like, I actually want to increase their pay, but then I would actually want to like increase their pay, but then make other things more stringent. Same with police officers. I'd like to see them be paid a lot more, make it be a really attractive, cushy job, but also really raise those standards and add on things like liability insurance, pull away qualified immunity, and get the reckless bros out of policing who just think that this is a way to dominate
But I
their
also
neighbors.
think look, all of that sounds good to me, but I also think we set police officers up to fail in a lot of ways. One of the things we need to talk about is the demilitarization of the police. Right now, under the 1033 program, the federal government gives police departments grenade launchers, armored vehicles, flamethrowers, bayonets. I mean, basically, I think you're bayonets on what? But I think you're setting up officers to fail in a lot of ways with the system. When you're asking them to go arrest people for smoking a joint in their bathroom, or when you're giving them armored vehicles and telling them to go enforce parking tickets. The system is broken, and I have some sympathy for police officers in the system.
I don't. And well, listen, this is not like me being like a cab, all cops are bad, blah, blah, blah. That's not who I am. However, the way I see it is police are, I think the correct way to describe them is they're armed agents of the state. They will enforce the state, and they sign up for the job knowing that they will enforce unconstitutional laws. And we have a lot of those. They sign up for the job knowing they will enforce anti-drug laws, knowing they will enforce gun control. They know what they have to do. So,
and it's only gotten worse with this like warrior cop mentality, the thin blue line. They think of themselves as like this separate class.
Like it's police versus everybody else, when the police should be protecting everybody else. But as we know from Supreme Court cases, the police actually have no legal obligation to protect people, which I think is a huge problem.